Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be installing and reviewing the Sense Home Energy Monitor. There will be two types of people watching this video, those in the know and those who don't know. As for those in the know, this video may be a little bit redundant for you, but then again, there isn't really a lot of videos on this particular product. So I feel I should add to that very small list, as my experience will be valuable. As for those who aren't in the know, today is actually your lucky day. Now, what is the Sense Home Energy Monitor? Well, it falls into a general classification of home energy monitors. And what do these devices do? Well, they give you more information about your energy consumption. Now, currently, you probably get bills in paper or digital form every month, and those bills will tell you how much power you're using on a month-by-month basis. Is that information really valuable? No, not really. It doesn't really give you much information at all. In fact, if you want to know, how much power have I used month by month and chart it over the year, you might have to dig up a dozen statements and manually plot it out in Excel. And that's just not very useful. This device gives you way more information, and it gives you the tools to view that information in an easy manner. So what do home energy monitors generally do? Well, if you think about it, a larger house might have 2 or 3 dozen appliances and devices plugged in at any given time. And you might get really high power bills, but you don't really know where they're going. Now, do you? Home energy monitors, most home energy monitors, I will be talking about this one in particular, give you the ability to see where that power is going exactly and when, and chart it out in a tool. So when you know where your power is going, it gives you some rather remarkable capabilities. Now, number one, say you have a bunch of old appliances and you have really high power bills. Well, you only have so much money. You can't go around upgrading them all at once. So wouldn't it be valuable to know which appliances are the worst on your energy consumption and prioritize those and know which ones maybe just aren't worth bothering on? The next one is knowing, how much power you're using at any given time. You can pull up an app, you can look at it. Say you plug in some device that you don't ever really use, and you think it's off, you think it's not using any energy. Well, it turns out it's actually using quite a bit of energy. You would never be able to tell unless you had a device to actually monitor it. Now, another reason to get something like this might be to know when things are going wrong or to monitor for unusual behavior. As an example, say you have a sump pump or some other device like that. You might not know when it's running, but this device will let you know, so that if it runs, say, 24 hours straight, maybe you know something's wrong and maybe it's time to get that investigated before there are some more dire consequences. So basically what I'm getting at, my main purpose for this is to know what we need to change. So there might be small habits that we do, like having the wrong things plugged in or turning off lights that we should prioritize more, that are using tons of power that we just don't know about. We don't have that visibility. I want that visibility. Also, we have an older home. We have dozens of older devices, and we're not millionaires. We can't go and replace them all just like that. So we want to know what appliances we should prioritize upgrading first. And that's what this tool is going to do for us. Now, what makes the Sense Home Energy Monitor in particular special is that instead of monitoring every individual circuit, you only need to monitor the main power wires coming into your house. And you may say, well, how is that supposed to work? Then you only know how much power your house is using total. Well, yes, but basically by monitoring the waveforms and the shape of the current, you can determine by checking against a database of other users what appliances you have. You can sort through that power consumption and extrapolate what appliances are running. So it massively simplifies the install. Nothing else will be as DIY, easy to set up, user-friendly as this device, at least not that I'm aware of. Now, not to get fruity, but as well, I feel I should mention that honestly, I think it's everyone's duty to try and reduce our consumption as much as possible. One, save our pocketbooks, because obviously electricity costs money. Here it's very expensive, but we're still getting several $100 power bills. God forbid we lived somewhere else where power was a normal rate and it cost twice as much. You know, can you imagine $1,000 power bill? And number two, well, we just want to save the planet here. We want to use a little bit less, and it's not hard to do as long as you know what to do. And lastly, I should mention that, you know, this device isn't going to pay off. It's not going to work out for everyone. Really, it depends on your situation. If you're already running a really efficient house, there might really not be a lot of stuff you can fix. Might not be a lot of stuff you can change. Is this thing going to financially pay off in a reasonable time period? Maybe not. In our case, we have an old house with dozens of old appliances and all sorts of gadgets and stuff. I'm absolutely certain that this will pay off very, very quickly in our case. For you, it's probably going to be different. It really depends, and it's up to you to make that decision. Even if it's not a financial thing, you may just still want to geek out over the data. You may just want information. That's also a thing to think about. Really, it depends. Let's get started. I know unboxing isn't usually my style, but this is going to be a little bit different. So first things first, we got to get it out of the airtight lid here. Looks like we've got a couple items. So we got a welcome guide here, some fancy pictures. Clearly you can tell the marketing's good on this. Next up, we've got some stickers. These are the appliance icons. You'll see it when I show the app later. Another sticker. And then as for this paper documentation, this appears to be a giant instruction manual. I guess this is a poster here. It's pretty big. You can hang it up on your wall if you want. I don't know. Once again, good marketing. And basically we've got step-by-step instructions on how to install this unit here. Now we get into the good stuff here. First things first is the actual unit itself. This thing is internet connected, so it talks to the server, the mothership. Yeah, so it just pops out of there. So you can mount this on the wall or in the fuse panel. That's the connection for the antenna, clamps, power. Next thing that comes out of the box is all the wiring. So it comes in a package. These are the main current clamps. All you do is you clamp these over your main power wires coming into the panel. And we'll just slide everything else out. Mounting bracket, power wires, antenna. You can put one on the outside of the box, or you could have it mounted on the wall outside. And yeah, and these are just the current clamps here. They'll pop out. So yeah, this is what you get once you get everything out of the box. Instructions, welcome guide, free stickers, stickers you paid for that are free. The actual unit, current clamps, mounting bracket, power cables, antenna, and hardware. And that covers it. All right, guys, let's begin the install. First step is to remove the panel cover. Alrighty, so now we just got to take the panel down. Pull off. Now I just want to specify before I go any further, if you don't feel comfortable working on these types of systems, don't do it. Call an electrician. Otherwise, feel free to go right ahead and turn off the power. I'm not actually going to be doing that just because, but for best practice, do as I say, not as I do, and turn off the power. First thing we're going to start with is internet connectivity. We have to get the antenna to be outside the box because this box is metal and grounded, and the signals will not go through this box. They already provide the fitting, so I just got to punch out a knockout. I'm just going to head to the side, tap that in, grab a pair of pliers. Now we'll take our Wi-Fi antenna here, and we will pop that right on through. You can even remove it if you want. All you have to do is squeeze these tabs down. Make sure that's nice and tight. flip that up like that. Next up, we need to wire in some power wires onto a 240 volt circuit. So the idea is the Sense is going to use these power wires to power the device, as well as monitor the voltage of the incoming supply. Because obviously, voltage times current is equal to power. So if you don't know what the voltage is, you can't calculate the power. That's what this is for. And a neutral here. Now I should mention there are actually two ways to do this. Ideally, you wanted it on its own separate breaker, but if you can't fit another breaker, you can't obtain a breaker, or you don't want to spare the space in the panel for another breaker, you might just want to go and piggyback off of an existing breaker. This isn't fantastic, but it works, and there's really no major problems with it, aside from the fact that if that appliance trips the breaker, your Sense fails, and if you want to just turn the Sense off for whatever reason, you can't do that, and if you want to turn that appliance off without turning the Sense off, you also can't do that. But in this case, we will never ever be touching the dryer breaker, so I'm going to piggyback off of it. Now we get our Sense here, color coded, it's all the same. So I am going to very carefully slip that, because this actually has space for two wires, one on either side of the screw. So I'm going to slip that on the opposite side. This is a little tricky. I've got to make sure that both wires. Yeah, so you don't want to touch the power, basically. So it's best to turn it off if you can. So this is going to be a little tricky because I got to make sure that both wires are pressed in at the same time, and I got to install it. So this is almost a three-handed job, but I'll manage. That end. Okay, that's nice and tight. Now we have to install a wire onto the neutral bar. So you should be able to see this is our neutral / ground bar here. Although we're not supposed to wire grounds to it anymore. That's a thing of the past, clearly. Just slide the wire in there. Okay, so now our two power wires and one neutral is installed. So our Sense will be able to measure the power inputs. So I'm just going to pop this breaker back in. Put that back in there. It's usually a little bit difficult to put these things on there properly, but yeah. All right, that breaker is now installed. So we've got our antenna and we've got our power wire. So now we've got to install our current clamps. Now you have to be very careful with this part because as you can see, this main power is on right now. Even if you turn it off, all this stuff will be turned off when you turn this main power off, but anything above this switch is still going to be live. So that's why this cover is installed here. So it keeps the always on stuff concealed. So this is probably the most dangerous part. Just going to carefully pull it off. So yeah, you can see we've got 200 amp service here. These are our lives coming in. This is our neutral, and that's the ground. And you can see they all go into this big switch here. We have our neutral bus bar that goes underneath these contacts to our side neutrals. And then this switch controls our phases, and the phases are attached to all these individual contacts here that go onto the breakers. Even though this is one of the more dangerous parts of the install, it's actually quite simple. You've got these current clamps here. You'll see that there's arrows. One side has a sticker, the other side does not. When you install these, make sure that the arrows are pointing the same way. In general, when working on electrical equipment, it is also best practice to only use one hand. And that way you can't grab onto some live contacts with both hands and not be able to let go. There's one, and there's a second one, both in the same direction. Now I'm going to twist these to the side a little bit, pass it in behind there, like that. Wires will just come out like that. So now we have our current clamp installed, our antenna, and our power wires. Now we're ready to install the actual unit itself. It's got the antenna hookup, and it's got the power and the current clamp hookup. There's two ways to install this. You can actually locate it on the outside of the panel if there's not enough room, using this mounting bracket and clamp system. But then you got to run all the wires outside the box through a knockout. In my case, I have more than enough room in this panel. So the second way to install it is to put it right here at the base of the panel. This device is rated to be installed inside panels. Now in my unit, I'm actually going to do a little bit of extra, and I'm not just going to install it face down, I'm also going to stick it down with some tape. So we will place it right about there, like that. And now we've got to do some cable management. So yeah, I'm just going to place the wires in like that. Tighten that on, just hand tight. It also helps to make sure you don't over torque it because it'll slip. So now that our antenna is hooked up, I'm going to do the current clamps next. I'm going to put a zip tie around the extra here. Zip tie will keep those wires from flapping around in the breeze. Now the last thing to do is to plug in the power. Now that is the complete install. This actually looks really good. I almost wish I installed it outside the panel just so I could admire it, but it is what it is. Anyways, I find once you start getting a lot of breakers in here, and installing these panels usually tends to be a pain because you've got to manipulate this front plate and get all these breakers to fit into the hole. Yep, so everything's in there. All that we have sticking out is a single Wi-Fi antenna. So, finishing touches. There we are. Vanity plate, vanity sticker there. So we've got all these stickers here. And just to complete the install, you're going to want us to install this sticker right here to label our breaker. Yep, so now we are labeled, so we know that our sense is on the dryer breaker. Okay, so I just want to be clear, this is my first time doing this setup process. So you'll get to see whether or not it's intuitive. I'm going to be showing you my screen here. Since we're done the install, I'm going to turn on the power to the sense. So I've got the app installed. Now I'm going to open up and I'm going to hit get started. Now that's important. Continue. So now we're in the scanning process. I'll just kind of hold it near the antenna. Oh, pops right up. Verifying install. Oh, there's my Wi-Fi. Now I'm gonna have to sign into this. All right, so I got my Wi-Fi password and I'm going to connect now. Oh, thanks. All right. Connection test. Finish setup. Okay, I'm gonna have to create an account. Alrighty, so we get to see that now we're consuming 2400 watts. Wow, that's quite a bit. So I decided to cut it off there. That pretty much covers the installation and the setup of the device. It is fairly intuitive. The convenience, of course, is one of the primary factors that makes it more popular when compared to the more traditional alternatives. Now, it is worth noting that this will be part one of a two-part series. As of the uploading of this video, I actually installed this device last spring. Now for part 2, I plan that to be a 1-year update video. And thus I would like to actually make it to the 1-year mark. So it seems that part 2 will be coming out later this spring. Now in part 2, I plan to cover my user experience over what will be the past year, as well as go over some of the changes I made to my personal homes and appliances to save energy and to actually calculate how much energy I've saved thus far. So that's bound to be an interesting video. Until then, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.